She finalized her doctoral studies in the University of Regensburg in February 2015 under the supervision of David Eiley. Her thesis on the medieval office chants for the Saint of Trier concentrates on newly composed office chants for local saints from the Diocese of Trier. Her research interest focus mainly on the transmission and composition of divine offices in the North Rhine, Westphalia and Saarland. Alongside her research activities, she holds the position of music lecturer at a private institution, the Swiss International School in Regensburg and Ingolstadt, as well as being responsible for the pedagogical management at the Berlitz Language Center, Regensburg. Her paper is on the 7 Historiae for the medieval cathedral of Trier, a conservative point of view. Please.
Thank you very much. I would like to add my thanks to Professor Eiley for the organization of this fabulous conference, and also to the Fondazione Levi for these fabulous premises. I must say, I've never been in a casino like such a beautiful palace in Venice before. It's really a wonderful pleasure to be here. Today I would like to take the opportunity to present offices that were written in honor of the local saints of Trier, an area that has received relatively scant attention from the musicological community. My research centered on the Antiphon Trier Bistumsarchiv manuscript number 480. This source is the oldest surviving witness with staff notation to the liturgical veneration at the Trier Cathedral, and it dates to the middle of the 14th century. In this source, I identify 7 local saints' offices, the saints all having a very definite historical connection to Trier. For example, Eucharius, as you can see on the slide, he was the first bishop. Maternus, Maximinus, they were both bishops, 3rd and 5th of Trier. Paulinus followed Maximinus. Simeon was a hermit that made his home in the Porta Nigra in Trier. Helena is the mother of Constantine, very important in the turning of Christianity in the city. And Matthias was the apostle that replaced Judas Iscariot. As part of my dissertation, I aim to provide a hypothetical timeline for the composition of these 7 Trier Historiae, supported by evidence drawn from the individual analysis of each office's text and musical style, but also taking into account historical information about the liturgical veneration of each saint. As Roman Hunklin so adequately put yesterday, there are a number of key factors which can help one distinguish between the traditional and so-called Neo-Gregorian repertory. Certain characteristics, or as Professor Hunklin calls them, Melodienmarken, can be perceived, such as the use of the so-called Gallican ending, segments of conjunct scale movement, and frequent leaps. The use of gold pitch-oriented melodic phrases is another important characteristic. All of these characteristics will not, of course, be present in all chants in such a way that the chants in any office appear homogeneous. Some chants may display more of these, and I use it in inverted commas, modern stylistic characteristics than others, while other chants might have a mixture of traditional and newer features. These can then help to assign the chants to different layers according to their stylistic approach. One question I wish to pose here is whether this methodology, using the criteria just outlined, is effective in establishing probable dates of composition and what could be considered as progressive or conservative. To refresh your memories, I would like to just look at 2 musical examples. First, the Magnificat antiphon in honor of Saint Matthias. This antiphon is in the first mode, and the chant texts are in prose. The melody of this particular chant is goal pitch orientated, which, as Professor Heine in his paper yesterday afternoon pointed out, is another strong indication of a composition in the more modern style. Almost each individual phrase, in some cases even individual words in this chant, move between the finales and the fifth above the finales. However, the melodic movement is far from adventurous, moving along in a stepwise motion. The number of leaps for a melody of this length is not many, and they appear almost exclusively between phrases. In the first three phrases, the melody alternates between moving in the lower part of the mode, with the high finales being reached in the second phrase. In the fourth phrase, the melody moves between the octave of this particular mode in the space of two words, although not in a linear movement. Another characteristic of the Neo-Gregorian repertory is the so-called Gallican ending, which appears 6 times, a relatively low number for a chant of this length. Next, I would like to look at the Benedictus antiphon from the office dedicated to Simeon. The chant texts for this office are all written in prose. In this antiphon, the melody is not formed through the use of repetitive melodic segments, but rather melodic movements centered around the finales G and the dominant D, with the majority of the multisyllable words as well as the phrases ending on gold pitches, which is marked in red on the slide. The melody does move in the central scale segment of the mode, but is more focused on the upper scale segment. Many of the melodic high points focus on the high D, touching numerous times on F, and then 2 times on the high finales G. As with the previous example from the Office for Matthias, there are not many tonal leaps for a melody of this length, only 2 to be exact. The so-called Gallican ending also features often, though not quite as often as one would have expected. Scale segments do occur, usually to facilitate movement between important modal tones, such as the finales and the fifth above the finales, for example, Domini in the first phrase, where the melody moves from the high G to the D through an interrupted scale motion, and then moving from the high finales to the fifth of the mode, which you can see in Secula and Laudibus. The melodic movement created in this chant moves over a wider ambitus than the previous example, and also at a more rapid pace, facilitated by the use of the scale segments. The interpretation of the analysis of only these musical and textual characteristics could lead one to certain conclusions. However, when combined with historical information gained concerning the history and liturgical veneration of these saints, I would like to propose the following compositional dates. Simeon's office was most likely composed shortly after the saint's death. Archbishop Popo commissioned a vita to be written shortly after the saint's death, which was on the 1st of June 1035, in preparation to ask the Pope to canonize the hermit. It is highly probable that a proper office for the saint was composed shortly thereafter. The office for Matthias could have been composed for the inauguration of the altar and the renaming of the church previously dedicated to Eucharius in the honor of Saint Matthias. This took place on 13 January 1148, or could have been even a few years earlier, after the saint's bones were miraculously found again in 1127. Although it is clear that the composers of these chants in honor of the local tree saints were aware of the tendency or fashion to move towards a more modern style, they were not quite so adventurous as in other parts of Europe in applying it. The stylistic parameters shortly set out at the beginning of my short presentation could be applied rigorously to any chosen cycle of chants, as has been done in almost all publications concerning new local chant compositions. Using only this methodology on its own to calculate a possible date of composition could be risky. The results gathered from the almost mathematical application of these criteria can only ever be hypothetical, especially if there is no supporting historical information to aid the scholar in the application of the data gained. The analysis and comparison of regional compositional styles, as well as their development on a local level, is limited due to the vast number of new chant compositions for local saints which has as yet not been identified nor researched. More local offices need to be transcribed and analysed before it would be possible to describe the characteristics of a local tradition adequately, especially in a broader European context. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are questions or comments?